Another day, another real-world test. Today we're doing on the Google Pixel 10 Pro, and eagle-eyed viewers might notice I'm not in New York City right now. I'm actually in Berlin, and I'm at the Hotel Orania, which I love here, in the neighborhood of Kreuzberg. Now I'm in Berlin for IFA, which is sort of a smaller, more European-centric consumer electronics show. But while we're here, why don't we test out this phone and explore as per the usual. But first things first. Coffee. Check. And this is the Greens Coffee and Plants. Guess what's inside? Ironically, there are no plants. No, there's a ton of plants. It's actually a good little spot to sit and have great coffee surrounded by plants. It's cute as hell inside and quite large, really. And it's kind of a hidden gem a bit, as it's in the neighborhood of Mitte, which literally means the middle or center, which it is in Berlin. And it's home to most of the landmarks that you'd visit, so it can be a little touristy. But in here, you'd never know. Now beyond that, they also have a solid menu where they try, wherever possible, to serve regional cuisine. Only use beans from Berlin roasters, and the menu changes with the seasons. They also have a big focus on sustainability, but instead of, just recycled cups, their espresso machine is a restored one. The wall panels are built from Berlin households. They use historical kitchen utensils from the 50s in the back of house, and a lot of the decorations come from flea markets around the city. Now, in this aesthetic setting with good lighting for filming, frankly, let's talk about the Google Pixel 10 Pro's design first. And well, it's not changed very much from last year, to the point where you'd be hard-pressed to know which was a Pixel 10 Pro and which was a Pixel 9 Pro. If you really need to know though, the G is now larger on the back, and on the Pixel 10 Pro models, it's also shiny now. But other than that, there's nothing else I can really point to. We have the same 6.3-inch display on the 10 Pro as the 9 Pro, and the same 6.8-inch display on the 10 Pro XL, which is only different in display, battery, and overall size. Everything else is the same. We have our same rounded edges, glossy aluminum frame, and matte glass back, compared to the glossy back and the matte frame on the non-Pro models. We still have our distinctive camera bar that, again, I like the look of, and has a side benefit of being more stable on a table, if that matters to you. And it comes in obsidian, which is black, porcelain, basically white, but also we have a new moonstone, which is almost like a purple gray kind of color, and jade, which I have here, is kind of a soft green. Honestly, despite the lack of changes, I personally love the design, just like I did on the 9 Pro. In my opinion, it has to be one of the most premium feeling, solidly built Android phones out. Now, the one thing that most people are unhappy about right now is the lack of a SIM card slot. And yes, Pixel has gone the way of iPhone, and we now have eSIM only, at least here in the States. Now, normally I would have also hummed and hawed about this, but when I set it up, it just kind of worked. The eSIM moved from the Motorola Razr I was using to this seamlessly. So maybe it's getting better now? You guys let me know if your eSIM experiences are also getting better. I'm curious. Okay, a little bit more about the display. It's the same resolution as the Pixel 9 Pro and the same 120 Hz display that can drop to 1 Hz to save power, but there's also a slight bump in brightness over the 9 Pro, which is always welcome. But either way, the 9 Pro and the 10 Pro displays are bright, have great color and contrast, they're easy to see outdoors, and they feel smooth when you're scrolling. And lastly, one of the biggest deals, I think, to a lot of people, we now have MagSafe. Well, technically, we have Pixel Snap, as Google calls it, but it's really Qi 2, which is a standard that includes the same magnet positions as MagSafe. Now this means that you can now use any MagSafe accessories, and this should also bring about a lot more accessories, and hopefully other Android phones will also now get this new Qi 2 with the magnet standard, instead of the just Qi 2 Ready, which we've been seeing a lot of lately. And speaking of MagSafe accessories that work well on here, this is the Mobvoi TicNote AI voice recorder, today's sponsor. And firstly, the TicNote itself, if you take it out of the sleeve, is super thin, and it has just a few tactile controls on it to make things simple. You can tap and hold the power button for 2 seconds and it'll begin recording, and you tap and hold again for it to stop. Easy. We also have a toggle on the left, which is used to switch from speaker mode, which records things as you'd expect through the microphones on the device, but then you can also move it to earphone mode, which will use bone conduction to record phone calls with it attached to the back of a phone. And it saves all of these recordings on the 64 gigs of internal storage, enough for up to 834 hours, aka more hours than there are in a month. And it'll record up to 25 hours non-stop on a single charge, with a standby time of about 20 days. So you can take it on a long trip too. Now, moving to the app though, is where things start to get really interesting. You can have it transcribe everything, either manually or automatically, even in real time, as well as get an automatic summary. It can also automatically make to-do lists for you based on a meeting that you just had, for example, and even aha moments, as Mobvoi calls them, which are key insights that the AI will highlight for you automatically. Now, something that I thought was unique is that it can also create a mind map from a discussion to visualize your conversation. And lastly, they have an AI assistant assistant built in called Shadow. You can use it to scan through multiple folders and files and pull up quick answers about the content, and have it turn your summaries into natural sounding podcasts so you can listen to them while doing other things, which is efficient. It also syncs with the website, so you can see and interact with your notes, recordings, organize things, and ask questions to Shadow there as well. If you're curious about it, I'll leave a link below so you can check it out there.
Got another coffee because duh. But let's head a little further into Meta now and test out the cameras on this phone.
Brandenburg Gate, one of the top 3 most famous landmarks in Berlin for sure. Built on the site of a former city gate, which marked the road from Berlin to Brandenburg an der Havel, the capital of Margraviate of Brandenburg, a major Roman principality between 1157 and 1806. Now the Brandenburg Gate itself was built between 1788 and 1791 on the orders of King Frederick William II of Prussia, and it was based on designs by the royal architect Karl Gotthard Langhans. The bronze statues at the top were created by Johann Gottfried Shadow, and it's what is called a quadriga, which sounds like an evil Roman monster, but it just means a chariot drawn by 4 horses. So it had 4 horsepower, which was a lot at the time, really. The gate has been the site for many major historical events. It was obstructed by the Berlin Wall between World War II and the Cold War until the wall fell in 1989, and during this time it was a marker for the division of the city, where Reagan famously gave his tear down this wall speech. And it was one of the few structures still standing in this plaza in 1945 after the war, though it was damaged by bullet holes and other damage from nearby explosions. And also, only one of the heads on the 4 horses actually survived, and it's now kept in a museum. The current heads aren't original. Also, Napoleon stole the statue in 1806, but it was returned 2 years later when he was defeated. She's been through a lot, and now we're gonna put her through some generative AI using the cameras on the Pixel 10 Pro. Now before we do that though, let's talk about the camera hardware. We have the exact same system as the Pixel 9 Pro, so a 50 megapixel 1 by 1.3 inch sensor for our wide camera, a 45 megapixel 1 by 2.55 inch ultra wide sensor,
and we have a 5 times optical 48 megapixel 1 by 2.55 inch sensor as well.
Frankly, it's a good array of focal lengths. The only phone that has maybe a tad better of options is the S25 Ultra, which has a 3 times optical to bridge the gap between the main and the 5 times optical on that phone. But honestly, the Pixel 10 Pro, historically known for its great software enhancing images as you take them, the 3 times on it versus the S25 Ultra, pretty comparable. And that really continues for most photos on the Pixel 10 Pro. They're great as you'd expect. And while it has the same camera hardware as the Pixel 9 Pro, it seems the processing is improved a bit, even more so in low light photos. Maybe thanks to the new Tensor G5 chipset, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that with the photos in this video. Also, for the first time, the Pixel 10 now has 3 cameras and at similar focal lengths, but smaller sensors than the 10 Pro. Again, you can be the judge if it's a noticeable difference throughout the video. Which brings us to the AI features of the camera, and the headline one, which I myself was pleasantly surprised by, is the ProRes zoom. This feature basically uses generative AI to create a detailed version of the original shot. It uses the captured image as a starting point and then kind of fills in the details with generative AI, which honestly to me is kind of a good use for generative AI, instead of just, adding dragons to random places. And the results are impressive. It doesn't always nail it, but most of the time I'd say it does, but with small text being the most difficult for it to do. But look at our heroine on top of the gate, and compared to the original shot versus the ProRes zoom. Come on. The generative part of this, by the way, only kicks in between 30 times and 100 times zoom. Google adds an AI generated tag in the metadata so you can still see if it was made with AI or not, which is a good first step. And it's something not available in the Pixel 10. So one of the things to consider when deciding between them. Now, we still have all the AI editing features that we're used to from Pixel at this point, like removing or moving objects, but now you're presented with a text prompt first instead. When you tap into this, it will give you suggestions of some things that it can do for you that you can then tap to say, remove people, and after a second, it'll actually do a pretty good job of that. But it's pretty limited for now. Now I can see a world where I can tell it to bring up the shadows on a particular part of the image, for example, and it's saving me time editing a photo. But right now, it can't do much more than change the composition of an image, remove, add things, do an auto edit, etc. Now personally, I just click tools to get back to the normal way of editing myself, but maybe this is useful in its current form for someone.
Okay, that was fun, but now I'm hungry, and I think I know where we should go.
Ah yes, Burgermeister. Now sadly, Burgermeister is a little too popular these days, but thankfully it's a Sunday, and even though it's 10 p.m., it's a little early for this place, so there's not a line. They also have a bunch of locations now around the city, and Germany for that matter, and also apparently one coming to Poland soon even. But the original location is still here, and it's the only one I will go to. And yes, the burger place is located under a bridge, inside what used to be a public toilet. Apparently the owner saw the closed down old public toilet, which was supposed to be refurbished, but no one had bothered to even touch it in about 20 years. And this guy thought, you know, I could sell burgers out of that. Now, of course, it's completely gutted and renovated inside, but they keep the outside looking the same. There's also no inside seating of any kind, and you just order, grab your burger, maybe a beer as well, and hang out under the bridge. And I will say, the burgers are pretty dang good. Okay, before we get out of here, let's talk about a few last things on the Pixel 10 Pro. Now, the chipset inside is the new Tensor G5, which, as always, is geared for AI more than anything else, but it's also just a solid chipset for most anything you'll do with it. It handles multitasking and gaming just fine without, stuttering or lag. And now the Pixel 10 Pro and the 10 Pro XL, but not the Pixel 10, have a vapor chamber for cooling, so it doesn't get as hot. The software on the Pixel 10 Pro is Google's flavor of Android, which I personally like more than any other UI on top of Android, as it is just smooth, the design is modern with subtle animations, and has some thoughtful additions to it, but it isn't cluttered with things like some other Android UIs can be. Now besides that, we have all the usual AI features that people like on Pixel phones, like the Screen My Call feature, for example. But now we have a few new AI features like Voice Translate, which can actually translate what you are saying into another language for the caller on the other end, and vice versa. But the one here that might be the most interesting is Magic Queue. Magic Queue, after you give it access to your data and or apps, can then use that to suggest responses in messages, calls, maps, Gmail, other Google apps, and in some other system apps as well. And honestly, I like the concept. Give me information that someone asked for without me having to go search for it, or proactively suggest things based on what I'm currently doing, etc. But I've simply found that it doesn't do a great job of this just yet. It liked to tell me to search for my own coffee shop in Brooklyn every time I opened Google Maps, even though I'm in Berlin, for example. And it sort of did similar, seemingly random suggestions here and there, or may none at all. And I have a feeling that this will get better over time though, and if and when it does, it could actually be super useful. So we'll see. Also, for software, we still have the solid 7 years of OS updates promised by Google, which is great. And for battery, today wasn't a normal day as I use the camera way more than you ever would. So here's another day that was more normal to give you some idea of usage. Personally, the battery life is not amazing, but it's not bad. For me, if I wasn't using it heavily, it would last at least from wake to sleep, which is all I really care about. And if I used it heavily, it started to get a little low towards the end of the night. Overall, it's a great feeling, great looking phone with an amazing camera system and some actually useful AI features and a decent battery that'll last you at least until the end of the night.
Speaking of, it's time to call it a night, I think. Let me know what you guys think of this video, my weird little format, the phone itself. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. If you want to check out the Mob Boy Tick Note, I will leave a link below for you to do that. But now, I'm gonna get out of here before I get another cheeseburger. Good night.